Working hard.
All right, welcome back to episode 3 of the RotoPros DFS NBA Midday Breakdown. It's Wednesday, December 19th. I'm Chris Terrell. I'm here with our resident NBA analyst, Josh Kronfeld. And before we get started, I just wanted to give a little shout out to you from our discussion yesterday. You had mentioned, we were talking about who we were going to play last night, kind of in the side chat and in the members chat as well. And it was kind of given that LeBron and Wall construction was going to be pretty chalky, and you said you were going to go a little bit contrarian and go with Jokic and Beal. So you were kind of going away from LeBron with Jokic, and then going away from Wall with Beal, and it ended up really working for you. So props to that. Good lineup.
I mean, LeBron obviously went in though, so I do kind of regret not having a little bit more LeBron exposure. But one of my bigger regrets was, and it's obviously, I mean, 12 points is a lot, but I was really feeling Luka Doncic over John Collins for the $200 savings and the better matchup. And especially with Dennis Smith being out, you know, Luka's going to handle the point guard duties that much more. And unfortunately I didn't follow my gut and I stayed with Collins, who still, you know, paid off with 41 points, but you know, in 12 points, dude, Luka had like 53. So in GPPs, you know, those 12 points are a lot of dollars.
Yep. So tonight we got a busy night in the association. We got 12 games on the schedule, including 4 teams. Cleveland, Brooklyn, Indiana, and Washington are playing on a back-to-back and third game in 4 nights. So we'll discuss that as we go game by game here. Our plan with the show is to go game by game, go over all the relevant injury situations and how those are going to affect our lineup decisions as we get closer to lineup block. So after the show, be sure to jump into the RotoPros community chat, where we will be updating you on all the news as we approach lineup block, right up until 5 minutes before lock. A lot of stuff comes out right before, so you're going to want to pay attention to that. If you're not a member, I advise you to get over to RotoPros.com and get your free 2-week trial, which gives you access to the community chat, cheat sheets, articles, videos, our industry compliant skeleton lineups, one-on-one coaching, and we're pretty sure after that 2-week trial you're going to be sticking around. So definitely go check that out. RotoPros.com, top right-hand corner, click the sign up button. With that, let's jump right in. So first game on the schedule here, we've got Cleveland at the Hornets. It is 12.5 point favorite for the Hornets, 216.5 total when I did this up here. So I guess there's a little bit of a blowout risk here tonight. A lot of that has to do with Love and Thompson out multiple weeks for Cleveland. Clarkson got rested last night with a back injury, so he's likely back in the lineup tonight. On a slate this size, with this blowout potential in this game, is there anything you're targeting?
Yeah, I mean, Cleveland's definitely been a really generous team to target against. They're on a back-to-back, as you mentioned. There's just a ton of it. They've been ravaged all year by just injuries and trades and lack of players. And, you know, it's interesting. Obviously, Cleveland didn't expect much this year, so they're kind of just, like, trying everyone out. So, you know, there's been a couple times this year where I haven't taken guys who are going against Cleveland just because I've been like, oh, it's not going to be, you know, a close game. They're not going to play the fourth, you know, and you know, that's been a mistake. I will say that the cash play in this one's probably going to be Larry Nance. He's been absolutely killing it lately. He's been literally, I think he has 6 assists or more in 4 out of his last 5 or 5 out of his last 6, something like that. So he's, you know, on top of career numbers and rebounding, and he's playing the most minutes he's ever played. So, you know, his price is definitely creeping up there. He's like 6,300 now, but it is a plus matchup. Charlotte's 19th in the NBA against the 4. And I could be wrong. That could be the 5. I'm not sure what this is referring to because he plays both. But either way, it is a plus matchup regardless. And he had the pretty amazing game-winning like tip-in last night. It was pretty awesome. And you know, when you have no expectations and you're just playing for a job and a contract and stuff, you know, it's cool. They're just like kids playing again. So I like Nance. I would probably play him until he gets to about 7K. But although other than that, Kemba could be interesting because his price is down. He's coming off of his like 4-point worst game of the year. So I wouldn't be opposed to stacking this game tonight in some way. I wouldn't like just, you know, take 3 or 4 from each side, but having like a Nance and Kemba lineup with a bunch of other like mid-range 6-7K guys who you expect 35 to 45 from, that's a good way to go in GPPs.
Awesome. Up next, we've got San Antonio Spurs, who are a half-point favorite. So we got a tight, close spread here tonight. They're at the Orlando Magic. Totals 208, so it's one of the lower totals of the night. The big news here is that Vucevic is going to be out. That kind of makes Mo Bamba a terrific value at center, I think, tonight. I'll get your thoughts on that here in a second. Second lowest game total of the night between two teams that are both near the bottom when looking at pace. They're both under 100 possessions per 48 minutes. It's kind of the rate that we look at there. What do you think in these kinds of games that are projected for lower scoring with a lower pace? You don't necessarily fade it altogether, especially with the value that's popped up. But are you really looking for a lot of guys in these low pace, low total games?
No, not really. Not when there's a bigger slate like this. If it was a 4-game slate or a 3-game slate, maybe I would look to someone like Bamba, like you said. I don't know his per game or per minute averages right now, so I'm not. And when guys are rookies and big men and things like that, going against good coaches like Popovich, I don't just throw them in the lineup just because they're starting. It's especially in the NBA where guys can get into foul trouble, and it's just, Bamba is probably okay for cash. It's going to be his first NBA start tonight, and he does have pretty good numbers in limited minutes. I don't think he's even played. I don't have his entire season in front of me, but I don't think he's played one game of over 20 minutes. So even though he's starting tonight, I would not expect more than 25 minutes. That's assuming he can stay out of foul trouble. So, he's definitely a good play for cash, but I wouldn't really look to anyone in this. I don't know. What's the spread? If it's a close spread,
half point.
All right. Well, then I like DeRozan then, because I don't think Orlando really defends guards very well. But I wouldn't rush to throw it in there. I think it'll be what's the over under? It's like probably pretty average for the night, right?
210.5.
Yeah, there's better games to target.
Gone up actually.
I don't mind it. I prefer DeRozan to Aldridge, but Bamba for cash. Otherwise, I'm looking elsewhere personally.
Awesome. Yeah,
I think I have a weird gut feeling that Jonathan Simmons, who's 3,800, 3,600, something like that, is coming back. He's not going to start, but the Spurs let him go. So, I know a lot of people out there think the revenge narrative is BS, but I personally feel like whenever you go against your old coach, old team, you care a little bit more to show them that they made a mistake. So John Simmons is a little GPP plug for me.
Yeah, case in point was that revenge narrative. I haven't really been on it either. A lot of people were telling me to play D'Angelo Russell last night.
Yeah,
I did not. He put up a 50 burger against the Lakers. So
you got to pick and choose your spots. It's more about. It's not like every single guy that is going against a team he used to be on. You have to pick guys who kind of left under circumstances where the team chose to not give them money, or literally made it clear that they felt like someone was better than them, or that they did not need them. That's
like Magic Johnson pushing him out of town.
Yeah, how would you feel? That's kind of these guys are human beings too. So, again, I'm not saying it's an automatic thing that you just plug in every guy ever going against his former team, but D'Angelo Russell was just traded when he was, he had some controversy in LA and they got rid of him. So it does make sense that you would, probably want to have a better game again. What's the NBA season, 82 games or something?
Yeah.
These guys are scrimmaging every day in practice. They play a lot of basketball games. So I can understand how, especially people who are veterans who've been doing it for a long time, take nights off, so to speak, where they just maybe don't try as hard as physically possible. But I genuinely think that, not to beat a dead horse here, last I'll say about it, that when people who have left a team under controversy or something like that face that old team, and especially if they're in their new team's home and they're feeling good and they can control a game, maybe they will try a little harder that night. I will just go as far as to say that.
Right on. And then moving on here into the next game, we've got the New York Knicks at the Philadelphia 76ers. Huge spread here, blowout potential, -14 for Philadelphia. One of the highest totals of the night at 225. The news came out earlier in the day that Dotson and Hardaway Jr. will play tonight. They were both questionable coming into this game. Dotson was actually more on, I believe, doubtful to play. But, they're both going to be playing tonight. And with this game having big-time blowout potential, are you interested in the Philly guys like Embiid, Simmons, Butler for cash, or is it more like a GPP just because of that blowout potential?
Yeah, I have no interest in this game. I was kind of surprised to see such a big spread. I wonder if that's going to change a little bit now that Hardaway and all them are in. But either way, Philly's a much better team. And, the Knicks are very young. So if Butler's back, I don't really see why this should be a close game. Kevin Knox is priced up because he's been doing very well. So I don't really have much interest in him. Maybe I would look to the Knicks bench a little bit since this will be a blowout and they should get some extra run. And the Philly bench isn't like the strongest. So potentially look at someone like Hazonia and maybe even Trey Burke, honestly. And I would be cautious with Dotson. I don't know how many minutes he'll play. But definitely don't worry about someone like Trey Burke's game log or something as a reason not to take him because with the double-digit spread like this, you have to assume the Knicks are probably going to be down at the start of the fourth quarter, which means people who have been not scoring that much lately in close games, maybe like Trey Burke, where the starters are normally in running it through to the end of the game, now are getting 10 extra minutes to produce in less intense environment. So my only focus in this game would be Knicks bench and, depending on if anyone's out for Philly, like, maybe Muscala or something on their bench too for garbage time.
Cool. And then another big game coming up here, Phoenix Suns at the Boston Celtics. Boston's a big 11.5-point favorite at home as well. Total of, it was at 218.5 when I first wrote my notes out here. That has actually gone up to 223. So it's one of the highest totals. I think that is fifth highest on the slate, which is still, pretty high on a 12-game slate here. So with Al Horford out, he's going to miss a sixth straight game tonight. Jaylen Brown is questionable. I might have seen that he is actually going to be in. With these injuries popping up, are you interested in a couple of guys that maybe popped up on my radar a little bit? They've been a little inconsistent. Definitely not for cash. The Marcuses, Smart, and Morris for Boston. Do you have any interest in those guys as maybe a GPP plug at a value price?
No, they're fine for little plugs. Good pricing, as you said. But my main focus here is Devin Booker for GPP. He's been out for like 7 or 8 games, and then he came back his last 2, and he's had like 60-something points in his last 2 games. So he's been doing really well. I think Boston's where he had that crazy like 60-point game that one time. So we know he can score there. He's a pretty good price, and his ownership will be very low. So I definitely like Devin Booker and Kyrie if you want to run that back in a GPP tonight.
Yeah, I think Booker is going to be low-owned tonight. I agree with you there just because of the tough matchup. I think Boston's top 5 against almost every single position.
Yeah, and he's their point guard, So
yeah,
his assist numbers should be up too.
And, I'm very analytical when I look at my plays. So in that sense, this is where you had me on Jokic last night. As I said, it was a very tough matchup for him. But you also described that it's a nice pivot in GPPs because he's going to be low-owned and – who's going to be out there doing the scoring? Who's going to be
exactly. Yeah, exactly.
So that's a great call.
Yeah. I don't want to be contrarian just to be contrarian because that can get you in a lot of trouble. So I don't want to, have the audience think that just because a guy is like an obvious good play and expensive, you shouldn't take him. You definitely should for cash, but especially in GPP. Jokic last night made sense. He was $100 cheaper than Wall. You could still get similar production. Look, it paid off that Beal had the much better game. It doesn't always happen like that, but I figured a worst case scenario last night would have been Wall has a crazy game, Beal still hits value, and then Jokic has a pretty good game too. And luckily it turned out where Beal not only hit value, but he had the better game than Wall. And, so you get that automatic advantage over the field. It's like in the NFL this past weekend. If you didn't want to, obviously it would have hurt you if you didn't take Joe Mixon. But if you didn't want to take Joe Mixon and you took Tyler Boyd, it would have given you some good leverage over the field.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you still would have had exposure to that game. But, if Tyler Boyd's the one who, and again, I won't take full credit for that. I'm a big fan of Al Smizzle and his podcast. So that's actually a great point that he made last week that I thought was a great way to explain getting leverage over the opposition.
And that's how you win GPPs. That's exactly how you go about it. You find a player that's going to be half the ownership, that's got the same or more upside than the player that's going to be really high owned in a week. And it may not always work, but when it does, you separate yourself from the field. You've got, a lineup that isn't the same as somebody else. There's no duplicate lineups going on. And that's how you get to the top of the field in these GPPs and win the big money. So we always talk about cash games at RotoPros. Cash is king. That's like our motto that we tell our customers every day, is that we use cash games to help build our bankroll, but we're also interested in GPPs. If we're going 80% on cash games and 20% on GPPs, those cash games help pay for our entries into GPP formats. And when those hit, we really crush and, boost that bankroll big time.
Yeah, you can't expect to cash in GPPs consistently. So
nope.
That can be frustrating. It's a slippery slope. I've lost a lot of money in DFS at times, so especially in the beginning. So it's very, you got to be careful.
Up next, we got Indiana Pacers at Toronto Raptors. -7.5 favorites. Toronto is at home. 211 over under. I'm just going to double check that here right now. It's actually gone down to 208.5. The news here: Valanciunas is going to be out 4+ weeks or so. Lowry and Ibaka both got ruled out, while Sakim and Van Fleet are both probable for this game. How do you pronounce it?
I thought it was Siakam.
Okay, that works. I don't know where I get the Sakim from.
No, I love it.
Maybe it's just easier to say for my Canadian blood. But
I would sound retarded talking about NHL names.
Greg Monroe has been announced as the starter for Ibaka at the center position. Now, something that I just kind of looked up, the last time Ibaka was out of the lineup was November 14th. Sakim, I'm just going to keep calling him that.
Oh, do you, bro? Yeah, do you.
He started. He didn't start at the center position. Valanciunas was in that game as well. So Sakim played 29 minutes. Valanciunas was in there as well. Monroe came off the bench. He played 21 minutes, and that was his highest minutes of the season, I believe. Crushed value was 17 points, 9 rebounds, 28% usage on the second unit. Now, Valanciunas is out this game as well. So, looking at the center position there, I believe that Monroe is really the only body. I'm not sure they want to play Sakim there in the center position. He's more of the power forward build. Do you agree with that at all, that Greg Monroe is maybe a really good value tonight that could see that 20 to 25 minutes?
I like Monroe. And Toronto is proven that they definitely don't rely on stars or people like Lowry in order to win. So they'll probably still take this one. Indiana's on a back-to-back. They've looked better with Oladipo back in the lineup, but they literally lost to Cleveland last night, so who knows how good they can be. I think they were on like a 7-game streak before that, so they're still okay. But, that shows they're vulnerable. But I will say that I like Chris Boucher. He was called up to also be another center body for them. And he's got some nice upside. He was averaging almost 5 blocks a game with 11.6 rebounds. And 29.4 points a game. So it's obviously the G League, so it's, taken with a grain of salt, but that's pretty prolific. And he can hit threes too. So this guy's the bare minimum price. He will probably play like at least, 10 to 15 minutes tonight, depending on how well he plays, the score of the game. And, I don't know. Hopefully it's more than that. I think that's at least a floor for him. Because, Monroe's not going to play the whole game, that's for sure. I think Monroe's only played like 20 minutes more than once this year. And he did pretty well, and he should do well tonight. I like him. But, it's a tough matchup. Indiana's, difficult defensively against centers. And if, they really don't play well for some reason, and Indiana's pissed off for their loss last night, and they make it a point to dispatch of the Lowry-less Raptors, then Boucher is going to get the garbage time minutes. So for 3K, he's upside maybe isn't the highest on the slate, but it allows you to fit some stars in there, which you're going to need to do tonight.
Yep. And then we've got the Brooklyn Nets, who are one of those teams playing on back-to-back 3rd and 4. They come in red hot as well. They've won 6 straight games into Chicago. They are 2-point favorites in this game, 213.5 over under. So I guess my question, what do we got? Levine has been ruled out. So Chris Dunn or Justin Holiday for GPP maybe. For Brooklyn, D'Angelo Russell coming off that monster game that we talked about last night. And then even I think RHJ is actually questionable tonight as well. But he's coming off 3 straight 30-plus point performances. Who stands out to you in this game?
Yeah, I mean, if Crab's out, then I think Karooks, or however you pronounce it, is he'll be good value, especially coming off of a dud last night. He'll probably have some recency bias, so that'll drive his ownership down. But it's a much easier – I mean, I guess not much easier, but it's another good matchup for him. So I actually don't think it was – I think LA defended his position well. So it's a better matchup tonight. But, again, this is dependent on Crab missing the game. I don't think Atkinson will. I think he'll continue to roll with Karooks. He is out for sure.
Yeah.
Right, then I like Karooks. He's his price is even cheaper than last night, and 3,800. Chicago's 28th in the league against fours. So I like Chris Dunn a lot tonight, and I think this will be a very high scoring game. It's important to have some exposure to it. So if you throw in like Karooks and Dunn, like that could do it right there. And that's two guys that'll be pretty heavily involved, I expect. I'm not saying Karooks will dominate the usage, but Atkinson at least usually stays consistent with his starters unless they get into foul trouble or they're playing miserably. So, due for positive I'm blanking. What's the opposite of regression?
Some people call it positive regression.
Sorry. I guess so.
Some people don't like that term, though, just because.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't like it.
Backwards, and then you say positive going backwards. Doesn't really make sense. But I mean,
trending up, I would say.
But this isn't an English-speaking podcast, so I mean, we don't have to be perfect on that pronunciations, especially when it comes to names, as I've demonstrated so far.
Jared Allen's a good play.
Yes. Ton of value that we've talked about so far. Haven't really talked about a lot of the high-end guys yet. And coming up here in the next game, we got the New Orleans Pelicans at Milwaukee Bucks. Milwaukee's an 8.5-point favorite here. Second highest total of the night, 232. So I guess a couple of players that I like here, Julius Randle and Mirotic are both. I think this could be a smash spot down low for Anthony Davis. And then I think there's some value here as well with Solomon Hill and probably going to pronounce this one wrong too. Delio. What's the Delio? Diallo. Okay. Delio sounds better. Just goes. Yeah. And then on
African,
the other side,
but you're making him sound like Italian.
Yeah. And then ABC on the other side, just as another high-price play that makes sense against New Orleans, who ranks 26th in fantasy points against the position. So of those two high-price guys, which one would be your favorite to pay up for in cash, and then maybe one for GPP, or do you think they're both viable in both?
I like them both. I think they're both viable in both. We'll see what other value opens up, but it's been some pretty good value today already with the Raptors situation and with Julius Randle and Mirotic both out. Obviously, AD is going to have an absurd amount on his plate. Luckily, Drew Holiday is there to help him out, but it's a difficult matchup for Drew tonight. So, I mean, my plan as coach would be to run everything through Anthony. So I think Anthony Davis makes for a really good play tonight. My only concern is that, I don't know if this game will remain close with all the injuries the Pelicans have, but, Solomon Hill I like. I've mentioned stories about him before. He's got the ability to change a slate, that's for sure. So for 3,900, I think he'll be a less owned, nice play tonight. Obviously, I like AD. I like Giannis. Assuming everyone's healthy, I think Brogdon may miss the game, but everyone else who's a star for them will probably be in. So Giannis, I guess I'm a little less bullish on than the others, but both safe for cash. And this is a high over-under, so you're going to want some exposure.
Yeah, if New Orleans can keep it close, I think Davis has got that 70-point upside tonight for sure.
I mean, if they keep it close, it's going to be because he's having a crazy game. So
yeah, exactly. And then Solomon Hill, like you said, at his price, 3,900, he's got that 30-point upside, which is kind of in that 6 to 7 X rate.
I learned the hard way. He's got that 50-point upside.
Yeah, no doubt. I remember that story from, I think that was Friday you were telling that. Yeah. And so then moving on, we've got the Detroit Pistons. They are 5-point favorites tonight going into Minnesota, the 218 over-under. Jeff Teague has been ruled out. So a couple guys that I've got on my list here early for values is Wiggins, Rose, and even down a little bit further with Tyus Jones. And then on the looking at Minnesota also, I'm kind of looking at Karl Anthony Towns. He's coming off a kind of a dud game where he only played 21 minutes last game, but he did put up 44 fantasy points in that time. So I think he people may be off of him just because of the minutes there. Myself, I'm not really seeing anything on the Detroit side. How are you really breaking down this game?
I like Reggie Bullock. He's coming off some good numbers, and I do think that's more representative of the type of player he is. So he was injured for a while, and I think he's like fully healthy now. So he's coming off his best showing of the year, 24 points. I don't think that's like what to expect from him every night, but they're going to need some other people to put up some points. They can't do everything through Blake and Andre every single night. So Minnesota is coming off a stinker. Actually, no, sorry, they won that game. Sacramento's the one who got rocked. But, Minnesota's I like Okogie. I like Derrick Rose. I like Tyus Jones. Teague's already been ruled out. So I think there's some value in this one. I don't see a blowout in any direction, really. So it's not my favorite game of the night, but it's probably the ownership will be less. So it's a good stack for GPP. And that's about it for me from this game.
Yeah. And then next we've got the Washington Wizards going into Houston. With Washington, I believe they're the final team that's playing on a back-to-back and a third game in 4 nights. So Houston at home is an 11-point favorite, 225 over-under. It's the third highest total with some blow-up potential tonight. I personally, looking at, I think I had a poll up here on this YouTube show. I'm not sure if it popped up or not, but the poll for tonight was who's your favorite high-price play? I mean, you're going to see some ownership on ABC. You're going to see some ownership on Anthony Davis, Russell Westbrook. I think possibly, now correct me if I'm wrong, would James Harden, because there's a little bit of blow-up potential and those other 3 guys are in really good spots, does that make Harden a good GPP matchup tonight?
Yeah, I think you said it perfectly. I think Harden's a really good GPP play. I wrote about him the other day against Memphis, I think, or whoever. It was one of those teams, and he went off. So especially on nights where he's got, not the most appealing matchup in the world, and on top of it, there's like other, everyone's going to be on Giannis. Everyone's going to be on AD tonight. Just because the game's the highest over-under, like it's just what you do. It's what you look for at DFS. So, we're not the only ones to see that. There's going to be a lot of other people who do. But, sometimes if you can afford it and you have the ability to play multiple lineups, or you want, you're accepting that it's a GPP move and you want to do it anyway, it makes sense to do. Harden's one of the, if not the best scorer in professional basketball. So it's never a bad guy to put in your lineup.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, when you have that 70-point upside, fantasy point upside like that, and you're going to be, maybe half the ownership of some of those other guys, especially, looking at the cards, talking about Westbrook there, I think it makes sense to make that pivot as well because, a lot of people aren't going to be on him. So if you're making 10 lineups, I think you're probably going to be overweight on the field having them in 2 or 3 lineups. So not like you got to go overweight on Harden by any means, but like I said, if you're making 10 lineups, fitting them in 2 or 3, you're going to have some lineups that are going to separate themselves from the pack. And if he goes off or even matches what some of those other big time players are doing, I think you're going to be ahead in GPPs.
Totally. It's like, like you said, if you can afford it and or what you're doing and you're just having fun, like, yeah, it's cool. Why not?
Yep. So up next, we got Golden State Warriors, 3-point favorites going into Utah. A little bit lower to 218 over under. I'm just going to double check that, make sure that it hasn't changed here. No, it's stuck at 218. So the thing that I kind of noticed here is that Utah is a top 10 team in defensive efficiency this season. So I'm kind of looking at Golden State as GPP plays as well. And then is there anyone on Utah that you like? Maybe Gobert for GPP. He's one that kind of stuck out to me as a GPP pivot off some of the other high-priced guys.
Yeah, if you want to stack the game, I think Jay Crowder is a starter now, so I like Jay Crowder. And I would always my gut would always say Mitchell, Gobert, and then like Curry and something like that for a stack. But, it's a tough game. There's other places I'm choosing to attack before this tonight. But yeah. Jerebko is interesting GPP play. I think he's going to get steady minutes for them all year off the bench. So if Iguodala is still out, then Jerebko is, I guess, an interesting target.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, there's a lot of games tonight. They're going to see a lot of chalk. And then there's also, a lot of value that we talked about. And then games like this that maybe people are going to be avoiding for the most part. There's a lot of spots to pivot in GPPs tonight. So it's one of those nights where making multiple lineups can really pay off. So definitely, get your cash plays in there. And then, I definitely like making 10 to 20 lineups tonight. Not as crazy. I don't really have the time to go in there and make, 50 plus or anything like that. Even with no hockey tonight, I'm not really doing any hockey, only 2-game slate over there. So I will make a few more than usual basketball, but still don't have the time to do. I wish I could get up there in that 50 plus lineup range, but it's just not going to happen. So moving on, the next game, second last game of the slate here that we're going to talk about, we got the Memphis Grizzlies going into Portland. Portland's a 6-point home favorite, very low total, lowest of the night at 201. Portland's favorites at home, but very tough matchup as Memphis is 6th overall in defensive efficiency on the season. So myself, this is another one of those games that isn't really appealing at all. You could do a GPP stack, but to me, it just doesn't make sense. It's more of a complete game fade for me. How about yourself?
Yeah, I'm not interested in it really. Who is it? Portland versus who?
Memphis.
Yeah, I mean, no, it's just not for me. I don't think there's literally one play in this game. I mean, maybe Jaron Jackson's interesting in GPP, but with J. Michael back, Jamichael, he's been kind of cutting into some production there. So I really don't see much in this for anyone, for cash or GPP.
Being a close game, Portland's, like I said, a 6-point favorite. I almost would want, if I'm laying a bet down tonight, I might want to bet Memphis just because they have been really good defensively. But one player for Portland maybe is sticking a little bit. He's getting in the mid-30s minutes here. And if it's the game, if it does stay close and doesn't get up in that double-digit range, is Damian Lillard someone he looks like he's got that 50, 60-point fantasy point upside. And obviously with a tough matchup, again, another one of these GPP pivot plays is going to be super low owned.
Yeah, I like Dame for GPP for sure. I think that's a good call. Same situation that we were just talking about with Harden, kind of, where it's like a really, really good player that you don't always have to, overthink it or whatever because of the matchup being tough. So yeah, Dame's one of my favorite point guards in the NBA. He's a great player. So in a close game at home, they're expected to win. I mean, there's no reason why he wouldn't be the guy to lead them down the road to victory. So I like it. Cool.
Final game of the night, we got Oklahoma City Thunder, 5-point favorites going into Sacramento, total of 234. Before we get into this game, Sacramento last night, what the hell happened there when they pulled the starters out halfway through the first quarter and just left them on the bench?
So I actually did a little bit of research into this, and it's literally, it was their third game in 4 nights. So they came out a little flat, and Jaeger just decided to completely rest them and play the bench. So
that was crazy.
That's why this stuff matters. You can't obsess over it, but if a team's playing, if it's Monday night or whatever, and you look at their upcoming schedule and they've got 3 games before the weekend, you kind of have to take that into consideration because the coach certainly is going to.
Yeah, for sure.
Definitely by the end
stuff that can make a big difference.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's highest total of the night. A little bit of a smash spot here for Oklahoma City. Really good that the spread is very close and only 5-point favorites. So I mean, Westbrook's definitely going to take on some ownership of the point guard position tonight. Sacramento's 21st in defensive efficiency and 20th or worse in fantasy points against every single position out there. So besides Westbrook, if they're going to be up there in that 110, 120 point range on the, team points, who else are you looking at OKC?
Kind of like Paul George, honestly. He's a little cheaper than Russ. And Dennis Schroeder is not like the top of my list, but I don't really want to take Westbrook tonight. I don't know. I mean, I don't want to act like I'm shell-shocked or have recency bias myself, and I'll do a little bit more research, and I'm going to have some exposure to him, but I just like I like all 3, the Harden, Davis, and Giannis more than Russ. And I'd rather just have something like Paul George. Similar reasons to last night with preferring Beal over Wall. Less ownership for Paul George. You're getting access to the game. You're saving a little bit of money. And God forbid they don't have the best night in the world. He doesn't need as much to hit value.
Yeah, exactly. Westbrook's 11,000 on DraftKings, 8,900 Paul George is 8,900. So that's quite a bit of price difference there, 2,100. And then over on FanDuel is Westbrook's 11,400 and George is, I can't find him now. but it's a little bit closer over on FanDuel, but definitely on DraftKings. That's a big price cap. And, looking at some of the game logs and stuff, George is maybe not have the exact same ceiling, but points per dollar ceiling.
9,400 on FanDuel.
94. Okay, so there's a little bit bigger gap there. So definitely, like I said, not the same raw points upside, but when looking at it from a points per dollar perspective and ownership as well, combine those two things together, I think you hit the nail on the head there with Paul George.
Thank you.
Awesome. So we went over some value plays. We went game by game, talked about some injuries that are going to be key tonight. Like I said, after this video is over, you can check this out right up until lineup lock. You don't have to be here for the live show. We're going to repost the link so you can check it out, leading up to lineup lock if you want to catch. I'm going to try and go in and set it up so that you can just click on the links below, hyperlinks, so that you can go and click on whatever game throughout the thing. Something I learned here from one of our other guys, Rob, how to do that, because he's doing a little bit longer shows when it comes to soccer. So it's been really key for people tuning in before the slate. So, and then like I said, if you're not a RotoPros member, make sure to head over to rotopros.com, go to the top right-hand corner, click that yellow sign-up button, and you're going to get your free 2-week trial, which gives you access to everything that we offer in the community chat, including cheat sheets, articles, videos, community chat, like I said, one-on-one coaching, industry-compliant skeleton lineups. Pretty sure after that 2 weeks, you're going to stick around with us for the long haul. And other than that, thanks for joining me today, Josh. It's been really good. We flew through those 12 games in under 45 minutes. So, yeah, if you got any questions, make sure to head over to the community chat. Other than that, let's go make some lineups, see some green screens. Cheers, everyone.
Thank you. Have a good day.